Hello, travelers, and welcome to another episode of Stars Podcast 4th season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. Enjoy this amazing interview because Rory McConville boards the mothership to discuss medieval Spawn. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. McConville. Thanks for coming to Stars Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. How are you?
So my pleasure, doing very well. And like I said, as I told you off air, I'm loving what you've done with this Spawn universe with the writing. You are fantastic.
Ah, cheers.
So, who's our question of inspiration? So, what inspired your love for comics, and who are your earliest influences?
Love for comics. I think it was just, I suppose, probably growing up in the 90s, it was watching probably X-Men, Spider-Man TV shows and stuff, and that was kind of the gateway to starting reading. We used to, I'm based over in Ireland, and we'd get these kind of panini reprints of like a couple of issues that had come out about a year or two beforehand in the US. So that was kind of, I suppose, the main gateway drug, if you will, like, and kind of as time went on, then I kind of started expanding my taste kind of beyond uh the big two stuff and kind of reading a lot more kind of Vertigo, Wildstorm, Image, and that kind of stuff.
So, when you were younger, was Spawn one of the books you were buying?
Spawn actually was not because we had a serious dearth of comic shops in Ireland, so we were kind of really reliant on newsagents, and so there was a very limited supply in what was available. So Spawn, actually no, I was much older, probably like in my early 20s, probably before I kind of came across Spawn properly for the first time.
So, that's kind of interesting that from Ireland, you got involved in the Spawn universe, and you've written for the Spawn main title. You've written for now for King Spawn. You're writing medieval Spawn. So, how do you get involved with the whole Spawn universe?
Um, well, that's a funny one because I was co-writing a series called Time Before Time in Image Comics, that launched kind of around, I think it might have been sometime in 2021, and basically one day out of the blue, I got a DM from Todd who said he'd read the book and really liked it and wanted to talk about potentially doing some writing for the Spawn universe. And then we had a couple of conversations, and yeah, then he just said, "Do you want to take over the main Spawn book?" Which I definitely had not been expecting. I thought it was going to be kind of like, a 5 page start, maybe a 10 page start or something, or like a mini series. But no, he just threw me in on the main book straight away, which was yeah, no, it was a surprise. I'm not gonna lie to you, but no, it's been great. It's like, yeah, I mean, geez, I've been doing it at least it's been almost 3 or 4 years at this point, like, which so it's been, yeah, quite a while, and no, it's a fun universe to play in.
Now, I mean, that's a little bit like Stan Lee saying, "Hey, would you like to write Spider-Man for a little while?" I mean,
Mm,
you're literally writing Todd McFarlane's baby create, his creation, his baby.
yeah.
What kind of pressure is that to write for a character for when, especially when asked by the actual creator himself, and when you have a disagreement, how do you argue with Todd about Spawn?
Well, let's say pressure. Yeah, I mean, I try not to think about the pressure. I mean, it's such a unique position in terms, like, I can't think of anything comparable that's been so long running, except maybe something like Savage Dragon. But like, obviously, Eric Larson does all that himself. So there's no, I don't feel there's any character that's been running for so long that is controlled by their creator that has been opened up to other people to write.
Hmm.
So it's, yeah, it's yeah, no, if you think about the pressure, it kind of will drive you insane. As far as disagreements, I think, I don't think we've had a ton. I mean, sometimes there's story uh ideas that we might have different opinions on, but we'll talk about it. But I guess, like, Todd does offer a tremendous amount of freedom in where you want to take the book, but then he does also have his views on certain things, and as if you're writing for any company, there is editorial oversight. So
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's his character.
Well, one interesting thing about the Spawn books, when you look inside, for instance, also, it'll show you as the writer. underneath
Yeah.
it has like additional scripts or plots by Todd McFarlane. So what is he adding into the book?
Well, in my case, I think with all of the kind of the core four ongoing books, the ones that he doesn't write, he typically will do a dialogue pass on top. Um, and like we'll have general editorial meetings between the writers and Todd and Thomas Healy, the editor in chief. So he will be aware of kind of story beats and stuff as well.
What kind of having once again having that he is the creator of a writer, an artist. What does he like to work with? Is he how open is he to your creative ideas? How much does he have a fixed idea of what Spawn needs to be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
I mean, he's incredibly open in like a lot of ways. Like he really, I remember the thing he first said to me is that like if I want someone to write like me, I'll just do it myself. Like so he's very much like once you're writing the character, he wants you to like take it in a different direction or put a different spin on it. So yeah, like and he's always one of the things I think he's best at is just like the kind of big picture ideas. Like he's there's so many like kind of concepts and ideas in the universe that haven't quite made it that are planned for the series but haven't gotten there yet. Like, but he really uh just thinks very deeply about the whole universe and everything.
I think one thing that's kind of interesting, and I mean, obviously, so you read King Spawn, but we're going to focus more on the Medieval Spawn series. Is
Mm,
Medieval Spawns usually when you think of a miniseries about a particular character, you think it's going to be like the origin story, right? But
yeah.
with Medieval Spawn, it's already happening. He's already been Spawn. Sir John of York is already Spawn. It takes place in 1443. He's obviously been doing it for a while. What is it about the place and time of 1443 that you think is a good point to for readers to catch up on what's going on in his life. Oh, past life, I guess, because it's not present anymore. The past of Sir John.
Yeah, well, I guess what I was thinking about with this is that because, well, it's a mini series, and I suppose because there is a certain degree of similarity to the process of most characters becoming a spawn, that I didn't necessarily want to kind of dig into that story at this stage. Because, and similarly, because we know obviously Sir John of York ultimately survives to the present day. So I wanted to try and leverage that by say how we use the kind of narration and kind of have the interplay between his past and his present. And that felt to me like it would be more interesting if it was taking place at a point where he as medieval Spawn was more established. Um, so that was kind of the impetus. And yeah, like I wouldn't be opposed to kind of showing his origin down the line, but I also felt people will know enough of the kind of the nuts and bolts. And sometimes people just want to see medieval Spawn on an adventure.
I think it's fascinating, and I think the character is very interesting. And one challenge for writing, I think, any Spawn character right now is that you have Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, Medieval Spawn, Chief Spawn. I think there's Plague Spawn. I mean, there's a bunch of different spawns.
Yeah.
And the challenge obviously is to make each one feel unique, both in how they approach their powers, how their powers manifest themselves on some level, how the character responds to being a spawn. So when you're thinking about those aspects of medieval spawn, how are you differentiating him from the others?
I think with him, the one thing that I think really sets him apart, aside from the fact that he's from medieval times, is that there is this kind of quest for atonement on a like a spiritual level that like obviously Al Simmons is not interested in that. She Spawn isn't, Gunslinger Spawn isn't. So I think there's this kind of desire to be a obviously they try to do heroic things in their own way, but there's a kind of at his core his desire, that kind of code of being a knight that he tries to adhere to still, that I think gives him a unique placement within the Spawn universe, even within the various characters who've been pulled from different time periods.
Now when you think about it, 'cause the word he uses is atonement, which is a very interesting word. Usually, when you think to atone, you're thinking of atoning for sins. That's usually a manifestation of religion and God, which is a very different type of God in the Spawn universe, as far as we can understand it within the world. Who is he looking for atonement from? Is atonement from just his own principles of what of being a knight? Is it religion and God? Is it something else?
That, well, I don't want to box myself in case we do shift around, because obviously there was a previous origin that was kind of alluded to in terms of what he'd done, that he had killed or tried to assassinate the king, and that he had been tricked into trying to assassinate a king. I think within the fundamental, as you say, like the idea of God is a very different interpretation to what he has now been exposed to. I think his religion, if you will, is his the sense of being a knight, and that code of honor is kind of, if he feels he hasn't lived up to that.
Now, as a knight, now that he's medieval Spawn, now he's I call him medieval, but I guess back in his time he would be just Spawn. He would be called medieval
Spawn, yeah, yeah.
Spawn.
That is always the complicated thing with these characters from different eras, because obviously no one within medieval times is aware that they're in the medieval era. Like,
And as you said, he's a knight, and a knight has their own set of kind of rules to live by. The code for being the knight's code.
mm.
Um, Obviously, he also did acts bad enough to have gone to hell and to become a spawn. How does he balance those ideas in his head? That one, he does want to be a code of a knight. He did have those ideals, but he obviously, whatever he did or has done in his time, cost him his soul to hell, as it were. Are those things hard for him to accept?
Yeah. I think, like, if we were to do subsequent stories, there would be definitely an exploration of that kind of wrestling within him as to how to kind of reconcile those various sides of himself.
When you think as well about the story that you're telling right now in 1443,
Mm.
are you thinking in terms of how it fits into modern continuity, or is this a tale sold within itself and it's not building or connected to the larger Spawn story?
Not the larger Spawn universe, but I think, without being too cryptic, I think it could play a part in medieval's story within the present, but not in the wider kind of battle of heaven and hell or any of that. It would be just, yeah, there are things, without getting too far into spoilers, that will play out.
And I think that another thing kind of interesting about Spawn and the Spawns of the past, which I think are a little different than where they are now or where Alzheimer's is now, because back in the past, you still have your Malbolgia is still around. You still have his machinations going forward. And just
Hmm.
like a lot of those he chooses to be a spawn end up doing pretty good things on Earth so far that we introduce. Gunslinger does ends up doing pretty decent thing, medieval. Um, how long is Sir John? How much latitude is he allowed to have to do what he wants in a world where there is a Malbolgia and his plans?
Um, that is an interesting one. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't really thought a whole lot about that just yet, just because I think that the other thing I wanted to do was kind of steer clear of the heaven and hell side of things within that story. Because again, with this, I wanted to try and lean into the aspects of Sir John that are kind of more unique to him versus kind of potentially retreading some of the ground that you would have in kind of Spawn's early stories. But yeah, it's an interesting point for future stories because, as you say, he's around in medieval times for quite a while, and Malbolgia isn't just going to allow him to run riot doing whatever he wants.
Well, the interesting antagonist in the story, though he hasn't been shown yet, and I correct me if I'm saying the name wrong, Abraxas.
Yeah.
Abraxas. Now, how does he fit into our understanding of the world of Spawn? Because it suggests, maybe I read too much into it, that he may be more interdimensional versus heaven and hell. Am I understanding it right? Or is he another Lord of one of the Circles?
No, yeah, he's meant to be from another realm outside of heaven and hell, um, which you can read into what you want. It's but yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely interested in exploring realms beyond heaven and hell because, I mean, we've already got the green world, so I kind of think there, and well, I mean, if you want to really start taking it further, obviously there are many different religions, so that opens up the door for a multitude of different variations of this, and like, yeah, that's definitely he's not from heaven and hell. You could definitely take that.
All right, so I don't know. This is trying to nail you down a little bit on how this all works. Is a suggestion then, as you mentioned, there's different religions, Buddhism, Hinduism,
Mm.
bunch of others. Or is this insinuation then that each religion stems from entities from another dimension? So they all do
Well,
exist within the same framework of the universe that you're creating.
sorry, no, I should have been clear. I'm not suggesting he is necessarily from a realm connected to another religion, but I think there I suppose we've just kind of established that he's been imprisoned in a kind of interdimensional prison, kind of like a void or an abyss, and been locked away. But um, as to the religion point, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you go about doing that, but I'm sure at some point there will be demons and such from other religions popping up.
That's cool. That's awesome. And again, to nail you down just a little bit further on all this, which I'm
Yeah.
not sure, when we're talking about dimensionality in a fictional universe, obviously, there's a sense you said heaven, hell, green is a realm, but a realm of sort of our universe. Are we talking realms, or talking like an idea of a multiverse, like in DC has multiple different dimensions that exist simultaneously within the same universe? Or are we talking about like a realm that exists within our universe?
Within our universe.
Okay. Um, this might be a little difficult one. Is it a way to differentiate between the two? We're looking at a realm versus multiverse.
Um, I guess, I mean, I think once we start getting into kind of multiverse stories, I think that would be a much bigger event, probably, if that ever were to happen. Um, but yeah, I don't know what the technical way of differentiating them is.
Now, when we think about again of Abraxas, how from point of view of who he is,
Mm.
what level of power are we talking? Is he a major player? Is he an entity that got, as you said, imprisoned? Well, like what kind of danger is he posing now to how we understand what's happening in 1443?
Well, he's kind of, I think it's been stated he's kind of a parasite, so he lives off other creatures, and in terms of trying to exist within our realm, he needs a host. So he is, I suppose, restricted by the power of or like it's based off whatever host he chooses to possess. That is the gauge on what his power is.
Now, another interesting character that you introduced in the series, and also you're dropping a lot of hints for, is Richard,
Yeah,
who I'm not going to remember the exact phrase you used, but you have the narration of Sir John basically saying, "If I had known what he would become, I would have choked him." I basically choked him to death now. Before
yeah,
he came
yeah.
remember, can't remember the phrase you used, but it was a great phrase of how you would have killed him now if he had thought about it. So what can you hint about where Richard is headed?
Um, well, I mean, I suppose obviously there's been a lot of hints in the uh early issues so far, but I suppose that there is probably a shift in the relationship between him and Sir John coming soon that will potentially be a thing that plays out over the longer term. outside of this mini-series necessarily.
Now, another interesting thing about we talk about Richard. He actually has seen a lot of horrors in his past,
Hmm.
and the insinuation is those horrors led him down to that dark path. Would he already been heading down a dark path without having seen that, or did that change him in a way fundamentally that caused him to now to head to whatever path he's headed to?
No, I think it's purely as a consequence of his town being destroyed and the path that set him on. I think before that he was just a kid. Um,
And another interesting thing too is that you mentioned Sir John mentions keeps well saying you because you wrote it, but Sir John mentions, but I guess it comes out the same way. Sir John states that Richard is the same age that Sir John's son would have been if he hadn't died.
yeah.
Um, is Sir John blinded by what he wants Richard to be? Because I mean, is there like a thing that he reminds him of his son, that he has a fatherly feeling towards him? That is he blinded by that, or that's just an aspect of the relationship?
Yeah, no, I would say that the issue that is coming out this week will probably answer some of those questions. I yeah, that wasn't put in there by accident. Let's put it that way.
it, so I mean, is he wrong to? I mean, he's going to train Richard. He trusts Richard. How foolish is this to go down that road? And should a character like Medieval Spawn train any person? I mean, are they damned just by being trained by someone like him, or in whatever ways he would train them?
Well, I guess you could, without again getting it too far into spoilers, but if you are someone who spends their time hunting demons and all kinds of dark and nefarious creatures, bringing a young teen into that world is there's an increased chance that things might not turn out terribly well for that teen. And whether that is a responsible thing to do is probably up for debate.
Well, I mean, that's kind of interesting. That Medieval Spawn. I mean, he's obviously super powered, but he early in the first issue, because they do leave him in the second towards the second issue, surrounds himself with normal humans to help him on his quest. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, considering what he's going to be fighting, is it responsible to have these normal humans in the same situation where him and his powers are involved? I mean, is he just? I mean, is it just desperate for help? Is he indifferent to the risks he's putting these people through?
Well, I think that's kind of I think there was a line where because I think before they go into the monster village, basically he does warn them off, and I think there's a line in his narration that's basically says if they were the types to listen to something like that, they would have left a long time ago. So I guess you could maybe make the case those guys are just the reckless enough that they're willing to face those dangers with him, and maybe he's tried in the past, but they just keep coming back until obviously they leave in issue two.
What is your as the writer, what is your read of Sir John as a leader? Obviously later on in Scorched, she Spawn is the one who basically leads them. Is Sir John, in your opinion, a good leader?
Um, I would say there are certain aspects of leadership he is good at, and others that he is not so good at, which I think we'll see a little bit more of.
Can you hint at some of those traits that make him a bad leader?
Well, I suppose it's developing. There's a slightly obsessive nature towards the quest that they're on at the moment. That I think again, without going too far into it, is bringing them down a slightly dangerous path.
What can you also share about the character of Bastion? Because it sounds like he has more of a backstory than necessarily might have been presented. What can you tell us about the character?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of being introduced just to kind of show kind of some of the more world of magic within uh, this time period. And yeah, I think I just wanted to bring in a kind of powerful character who you didn't necessarily, who kind of dances on the line of being good and or evil. So you, depending on what the situation is, and kind of is very much focused on his interests and his interests alone. Which yeah, we'll see a bit more of in issue three, just as kind of how he fits into the whole situation that's taking place.
The insinuation that is that Sir John and the team have met him before. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes.
Or are there a bunch of stories that that eventually you're gonna tell us about what happened there?
Potentially. I mean, I think sometimes I it's nice to just drop hints about some stories that may have happened in the past rather than needing to explicitly share them. But it's possible. I mean, there's definitely things set up that could involve Bastion in the future and his relationship with Medieval, but we'll have to see whether they come to pass.
I mean, I think that's one thing that I'm loving about the Spawn universe, and even and especially what you're doing with Medieval Spawn and a lot of the other stories, is that you really have a sense of a depth of history to this universe. You have a sense that because obviously there's Deadly Tales of Gunslinger as well that Jim Palmiotti is writing. You
Mm.
feel like you're really building the sense of history to this universe, and I feel like we've hasn't been as clear than it has been in the last 3 or 4 years where you guys really feel like you've been developing it? Has that really been a focus to really make this feel like a tangible universe? Hmm.
Yeah, no, I think definitely like now since the kind of expansion into, as you say, the Spawn universe, there's been uh, a desire to try and have a degree of cohesion, like and kind of like Thomas Healy, our editor, would be a big part of that as well, of just kind of maintaining oversight over everything that's going on in various books, so there's not like things butting up against each other and all that.
I mean, is there like a functioning timeline that you guys have access to where it's like this is the years of what's going on in the Spawn universe?
Well, I don't. I mean, I Thomas possibly does, but I generally, if there's an issue, or I think there might potentially be an issue, I'll kind of uh just check in with him. But I if there is a timeline, I'm not aware of it.
Since Gunslinger Spawn has a an origin ongoing in Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger.
Mm.
Assuming Medieval Spawn miniseries does well, I mean, are we talking an ongoing Medieval Spawn origin storybook, or are we definitely looking at miniseries and over?
I don't know. At the moment, the plan is just for the mini series, but we're yeah. I mean, there's definitely a couple of ideas I have that we could develop out from there, but we'll just have to see how things go.
Another interesting character is Brother Dempster, who is is going to take on some more. He wants to basically destroy all the demons of hell,
Mm,
and when you think about it, that's a pretty good goal, right? I mean, I assume if there was
mm,
demons in hell running around here, I would like to think that there'd be a lot of people going, "Hey, let's stop that. That's not good."
yeah.
He's also one of the antagonists of the series. So, how wrong is he really in what he's going for? And at what point does his goal, which seems sensible, let's like say get rid of demons, which is a good goal,
Mm.
become antagonistic?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, as you say, there's probably a lot of things that have been done right. I guess it's within the context of how once you expand the definition of what is demonic to a certain point, obviously in the case of now he's gunning for medieval, we as the readers know that medieval is a force for good. And as a militant religious organization, I suppose there's always the prospect that they expand the definition of what is demonic or infernal too far, and that leads them into a more antagonistic role as well.
Is he motivated more by faith? Is it more arrogance? Is it something else?
I think it's a yeah, I think it's predominantly faith, but I think there's also maybe a degree of personal ambition, certainly within his own organization.
Is it, I mean, is how dangerous is maybe a weird question to ask, so I'm going to ask it anyway. How
Go
dangerous
for it.
is Faith? I mean, is there, because he is so devout, does that make him more dangerous? And is his obsession and his obsessive tendencies a mirror on Sir John's obsessive tendencies?
Um, yeah, I guess you could make the connection between them there. How dangerous is fate, though? I mean, I think it has the potential to be incredibly dangerous if it goes too far. Like, I mean, a lot of the worst things in the world have happened as a result of people taking their faith too far.
I mean, I think the fascinating idea, especially when let's say, and as you develop later on the ideas of God and the universe and heaven, the fact that they're devout to something that isn't the all good thing that seems to be, in religion. It's an interesting
Mm.
thing to that he devoted himself to that.
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't know the truth. He doesn't, and were he to ever find out, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he'd react. But then also, there's plenty of people who have faith and are made aware of horrible things relating to that faith who maintain that faith. So maybe it would only reinforce his commitment to it as well.
And what else can you tell us about the character of Fitzroy? Because that's another character that seems like there's a lot going on with him, but his character in the first issue kind of, I assume that's the end of his character, is the first issue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is
No,
there
he's
more
gone.
to what and who he was?
Not hugely. I guess he was kind of mean. Like the what I was doing with him was really to kind of have him as a kind of a dark mirror of Sir John himself, and kind of using him as a kind of cautionary tale of the desire to kind of erase your previous mistakes. And obviously, the mini series is predominantly about Sir John reflecting on one of his biggest mistakes. So kind of that contrast between them was kind of, but yeah, he was really just meant to be kind of a dark mirror to Sir John.
So is this how long is the miniseries slated to run?
It's 4 issues.
Four issues. So we're about
Yeah,
from what's released right now at the time of this interview, we're about the halfway point.
yeah.
So, what can you hint at what to expect from issues three and four, and what, or I mean, do you have plan? Because King Spawn usually does not contain the other spawns usually in it. It's usually it seems more self-contained to just mostly Al Simmons. Once this miniseries ends at four, do you have further plans for Sir John?
Not right at the moment. I think we're going to wait to see how the full miniseries does, and then we'll kind of talk about that. But yeah, as far as King Spawn goes, that's going to continue to be more of a self-contained focus on just Al's adventure. So I think we're kind of Sir John is unlikely to be showing up there anytime soon, but never say never.
Well, the cool thing about Spawn Universe is that it really, we really, on some level, well, maybe not. But on some level, because you had to look at the first beginning. I was gonna say like we're in the golden age of Spawn. Though I'll say the first 50 or 100 issues of Spawn well, actually was like a golden age of Spawn because they were great stories. But we're in a different golden age of Spawn where it's expanding, the mythos is expanding. Is as popular as ever been probably since like I said the first Spawn issues that had come out. What like where are you looking to expand it to now as someone who's obviously been in the universe now for a while, and obviously you have some pull in the universe and what you want to do.
Um, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever really thought about that. I mean, I'm just happy to keep working on Kingspawn for the moment, and if there's a couple of little ideas noodling around that might work their way into Kingspawn, or kind of I've talked to Thomas about expanding into mini series or something, but it's still kind of very early stages at the moment. I get yeah, one thing I would really like to see is more not Sam and Twitch, but kind of a street level kind of book or kind of mini series focusing on how ordinary people on the ground kind of perceive Spawn and end up kind of caught up in the kind of war in heaven and hell. But that I think that's a kind of interesting angle that we haven't really delved into much as yet. But we'll see what Todd wishes for the future.
And another thing too, like in memories, like you started off in the main Spawn universe, the main Spawn titles, and then you started moving to King Spawn. When
Yeah.
you um when you're thinking about your approach to the titles, what was your primary change in how you viewed the Spawn book versus King Spawn book?
So I guess when doing Spawn, that was kind of the way within the kind of writing department, we kind of view it as that like the main Spawn title is the kind of the engine that's driving the universe, and so it's very much like it's when we were gearing up for the battle for the throne and the when the powerless era happened, like that was kind of it was shaping the wider stuff happening on in the universe, and also was like very connected to the universe. Like there were, at some points, a lot of different characters were popping up issue to issue. Whereas switching to King Spawn, it was kind of very much we're trying to do the inverse of having it just be this very self-contained, horror-focused book that is just about Al's adventures and kind of digging into dark stuff away from the wider kind of universe-shaking mythology and like the big war between heaven and hell. So I think yeah, just kind of switching the perspective. And it's so yeah, it was very it did take me a little while to actually kind of figure out how do I make this a totally different book,
Well, I kind of feel like King Spawn, especially the current storyline with the Wraith, reminds me of the old school Spawn comics from the way back where he was focusing on kind of like ground, not well, not ground levels, but picks of villains with less of like large scale heaven hell earth, and I kind of I must say I appreciate a lot that feeling of like going back to what I was like reading the original Spawn books a little bit more.
Mm,
And I think like that I really I was a big reader of Spawn back in the early days. Like I think I started reading around God, it might have been issue 20 to around 70, 80, then and 100. And then I kind of was like a wayward and I came back around 298 and kind of jumped back into the Spawn verse. And I must say I now buy probably more Spawn books now than any other company. And they've been just fantastic.
that's great to hear. Glad you're enjoying them.
I really have. Can you hint at the universe going forward? Like, what's the next big thing going to happen with Spawn?
Well, I know there's big stuff that Todd's doing in the main Spawn title that's going to have quite big implications for the universe. And then I, well, I don't know what can I say because I haven't announced it yet. But say there's a lot of books are going to be hitting issue 50 soon, so that will probably involve something kind of big for the universe without going into too much detail.
There's the four main titles: Scorched, King Spawn, Spawn, and Gunslinger Spawn. And then obviously there's the peripheral title like Rat City and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Are we looking at a further expansion of the main four?
Um, as far as I'm aware, no. I think it's going to be kind of the core four at the moment, and that's. But I could be wrong. There could be other stuff in the works that I'm not privy to.
Well, like I said, I really love what you've been doing with Spawn. I really think Spawn's one of the best universes right now going on right now. And Mr. McConville, it's been an absolute honor to talk with you, sir.
Cheers, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Have a fantastic day or night, depending where
Day
how
or night.
you log in the time.
Early evening. Early evening.
Early evening. Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks so much, Jeff.